Ben Shapiro has thrown his hat into the ring, and now he is discussing the Nick Fuentes story that continues to develop. And it's primarily because of Tucker Carlson. And that is what launched this whole thing into hypersonic mode that we find ourselves in. Nick is a very eccentric person. He has been on the internet since he was probably around 15, 16 years old. So he has a lot of track record, but he started very, very young. And as you can say, if you start that young, you're going to say things that maybe you regret. I don't know if he regrets any of the things he says. I don't think he thinks like that. Maybe we shouldn't think like that. But he has certainly said a lot of crazy things. And in Ben Shapiro's show yesterday that was released, right after I got done with mine, Ben Shapiro got into it, and he explained why this is dangerous waters that we are in and what Tucker did. And he primarily focused on Tucker. He didn't get into Nick Fuentes a whole lot, though he showed plenty of clips of Nick Fuentes and the craziest things that he has said. He throws bombs, he throws grenades like nobody's business. But I want to take a look at this. This is where this is the issue that Ben Shapiro raised. He said it's not an issue that Tucker brought Nick Fuentes on his show, but the issue is that he is normalizing Nick Fuentes. I want to show this clip, and then we'll dissect it.
The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line. So, for those who don't understand what's going on, let's begin with Nick Fuentes. Now, as I mentioned...
Okay, so he's going to get it. He gets into it pretty in depth, though he primarily targets Tucker. But he just throws out... This is where I'm saying that, Ben, you need to bring... Just like Tucker eventually did, you need to bring Nick Fuentes on your show, and you need to have a discussion. What Charlie Kirk didn't do when he was alive, he did not engage with Nick Fuentes, and I think that ended up. I think it's because he thought he had more time, but that ended up being a terrible thing. We cannot, and he says it's not canceling someone. But it is canceling someone when you're not acknowledging them. When this person has this big of a platform, big of a voice, a megaphone, that he is reaching the masses. This is the way that things are going. And I'm actually completely on board with this. I think the parties need to be burned to the ground. Burn this motherfucker to the ground. The Republican and Democrats, this is stupid the way that we've allowed this to last for this long. But something needs to just ignite something. A changes need to happen. I know it becomes extremely tribal, but and then it becomes, I'm behind this person, I'm not behind that person. Let's throw all of that out of the window. It's what is the ideas? Ideas need to rise, and I think what Ben has done for years, he's just not even talked about Nick Fuentes. Instead of just slowly engaging with them, talking about where we differ. Nick is going to say some crazy things. We all know that. He says the craziest things out there. And I mean, I do not agree with a lot of the things he says. He's entertaining. That's what he is. That's why everyone is so afraid of him, is because he's so freaking entertaining, and he just says the things that people are really are thinking, but Nick just says it. Nick just says it. And that's why everybody is so afraid of this guy. But there's no more of just hiding and just saying, not thinking he's on our planet. He is. And he's growing. We need to acknowledge. Tucker acknowledged him, and now he's getting a tremendous blowback. The next clip we're going to look at, this is Nick Fuentes, and he says how extreme he has gotten, and he thinks that the whole MAGA movement, because when he was brought into this, he was a Trump supporter. He was a MAGA supporter and all that. MAGA, Trump. I mean, I like Trump, but the whole MAGA thing. I mean, I've never been a person I'm MAGA. Let's make America great again. But I liked what Trump did, and I think what he is doing. He is the best option. That's why I would disagree a lot of ways. that Nick's doing this. He is seriously just wanting to burn it down. He wants to. It's not about just putting another politician out there. And that is his biggest thing. It's a message. He wants to send a message to the thing. He wants to, because once he talks about when you get to election day, that's what you have. You're not really making a choice once election day actually gets here. It's everything that builds up to election day that is what matters. I think it's just, we need to figure out a different way of doing things. Status quo is not going to work anymore. Gen Z, the generation that is rising, that is going to be taking over. The boomer generation is slowly, they're passing away. The Gen Z, that is the way things are going. So if people that are stuck in their ways, like Ben Shapiro, and they just want to push this to the side, not even deal with it. Charlie Kirk, he dealt with it every day. He talked to these kids. He was in their. That's why he was. What strikes me the most and shocks me the most, that he didn't bring Nick on. Like, he didn't talk, and I think it was the Israel side, the Jewish side of his donors, that they didn't want this. That they were the ones holding him back and saying, "You can't do this." I think Charlie Kirk, because he talked to everyone, he wanted to talk to everyone. But the reason that he didn't, it had to be coming from the same side that Ben Shapiro's on. And I like Israel. But they're terrible at like running the story and making them, they fit all the things that people would think that they look stupid about. They fit into all those picturesque moments that everybody just assumes is them. They fit the mold perfectly, and I guess they're terrible at PR. That is what I'm trying to say. Like, they're terrible at PR and making themselves look in the best light possible. And I think they're trying to change that. And they wanted to have Charlie Kirk be the face of the person that just touts Israel and Jewish propaganda, as opposed to, and they didn't want to deal with the uprising that was coming from Nick Fuentes. I don't think we need to throw everything out. I think we can take the good and remove the bad from everything. Like, if Nick says something stupid and crazy, I would say, yes, that's insane what you're saying. And he's able to get clicks. He's able to get views by the things he says. But I think there just has to be a complete mind shift with the way things are going. There has to be a difference the way things are heading. And I think that Nick Fuentes, he's the start of that. He's the spark.
This just goes to show this entire thing has been a scam. When we look back on the history of populism in America, we are going to look back on the MAGA movement as the biggest scam in American history. And the liberals were right. The MAGA supporters were had. They were.
So, that right there is just a brief glimpse into the twisted mind of Nick Fuentes. And there's plenty more where that came from, of course. Hours of it per day, in fact. And there's no doubt that Nick Fuentes has a lot of play these days. That's because the left, by moving into a politics of anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male identitarianism, created its bizarro mirror image, a white pseudo-Christian incel identitarian movement dedicated to destroying the institutions of this country and replacing Americanism with something else. Nick Fuentes' philosophy is not fully formed. It's an incoherent stew of malignity. But that's where Tucker Carlson enters the story.
All right, that's where we're going to... And I think that's a very smart point, but because the things that Nick says, because it has to be about a message. He just wants to disrupt everything. He doesn't want the things to continue as they were. And he saw Trump as being the person that would basically torch the system and remake it and change it. And then he thinks that Trump is not doing that, which, I mean, you could say Trump is his own thing. He's the way that he has run his presidency. It's different. It's not the way it started out as. And I was pretty much disillusioned by Trump whenever the Epstein files, when he didn't want to acknowledge that. And I think a lot of people were, but that has been just fallen off the radar. People don't really care about that as much anymore. But Nick, he wants things to be changed. He wants things to be different, but it doesn't. There's no solution a lot of times with what he is bringing. He just wants to bring a match, and start the fire and just watch it, and I'm actually okay with that because I don't like the political structure that we have. Just left, right, and all this kind of stuff. Let ideas be what wins the day. That's what matters. If you have a good idea, if what you're saying is going to advance and make things better for people, then that's great. I think that is where we should go, and just people just being a part of a party and just swearing allegiance to a party, and that's everything. That's your life. Or just to one singular person, because where everybody sees everything differently. Somebody can be saying the same thing and everybody hear it 10 different ways, So we're not, just a monolith in the way that we think. Everybody thinks and sees things differently. And I think this is a good direction that we are going. And Ben Shapiro and all the people on his side, there is this. He's got to acknowledge it, and he softly acknowledged it on his show yesterday and talking about Nick Fuentes. But it was just clips to just discredit him. That's all it was. Because I listen to the things that Nick says, and a lot of it is just out there, and I disagree with like a lot of it. But he's also saying a lot of things that are correct and a lot of things that are right. But everybody is. I think everybody should get involved in this. Everybody should be aware of what is happening, because this needs to be the catalyst for everything in the political environment that we find ourselves in every day. So, all right, we'll leave it at that. Like and share this video. Follow me on X and Instagram at Brandon Fogel. Have a great day.
I could see the cracks form in the paint, growing like a fire. What do I say? Can you see them? Can you see